Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, May 13th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is Knight of Swords, and it's in its upright. I want everybody to take a sip of water with me right now. Everybody just drink your water today. Everybody stay grounded. Listen, we've got a lot of this activation energy coming to play today. And that can be positive. That can be productive. That can be very useful so long as you put it in spaces and places that feel like they are productive. One of the things that we're recognizing right now, I told you, we identified that there was a lot of energetic breakthrough that was occurring over the last few days across all of the frequencies. When we navigate those spaces of places of having a breakthrough, it can sometimes create that energetic sense of reactivity. And that utilized in positive ways can allow for a lot of energetic progress in relationality to plans, courses of action, so long as they're navigated with intentionality. One of the things we always want to be a little trepidatious with when we see cards of this nature is making sure that that word productive is the priority, because this can also sometimes create a little bit more of that reactivity space. So there could be a moment today, you could feel like those little energetic flare-ups, if you will, coming through today. The best thing to do during those is to allow yourself to experience that sense of setting your intention and grounding throughout it. Because this type of energy, when utilized in a positive fashion, can allow for that energetic breakthrough. It can allow for that sense of progress, whether within the self or externally. For masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, one of the things that we see has been worked through right now, especially if you've been doing all of this work, navigating within the self, going into those spaces and places, confronting the things that you may have felt that difficulty in confronting in the past with that feeling of energetic confidence via the counterpart. And when I say counterpart, I don't mean that sense of energetically leaning on the counterpart, but feeling that same work that is being done and facilitated and supported via the counterpart energy. This can create something that feels very activity focused, very activity driven, because this isn't energy. The energy in the divine union frequency is literally doing that work of recognizing the sense of energetic activation in terms of identifying that feeling of moving through something, bringing a lot of intentionality to it, and almost letting that be that point of like really focusing and really just driving towards goals today. So this could be a lot of that energy, taking a lot of the work that we saw that was occurring over the last few days and putting it into some point of activation right now. So again, navigated in a positive spectrum, that can be very productive. It can also, this is what we're not surprised to see, navigating those same spaces. The reason we saw that there were those pauses, the reason we saw that there was that like sense of prioritization of productivity through that sense of non-reactivity, that is that moment that there may be something here that does feel a little triggering today. So navigating through those triggers may be very valuable and important right now, right? We can't avoid being energetically triggered. It's just something that comes part and parcel with the experience of being here. But the way that we navigate through it, that is that moment that even through those moments of being triggered, we allow it to serve that energetic purpose, right? Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union frequency, a lot of that same energy today. And we're not surprised to see it as well, because one of the things that we identified for these energies, what occurs when we move into those spaces of places where when we're holding the energetic wounds of another. Not only do we see that these energies are building into that path of empathy through doing so, but this is almost that moment that you feel energetically protective for the counterpart, right? So we see even now that that is that modality that is being navigated to a certain extent that may often sometimes create that feeling of reactivity, right? What happens when we empathetically take on the wounds of another? That moment or that experience can sometimes almost create a trigger within us. So we see even now that that sense of care, that sense of energetic love, that sense of intimacy that is growing and showing to a certain extent in relationality to a lot of the work of the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now. This is almost something that is creating an energetic trigger within these energies as they experience it, because this is that moment, almost feeling the expression of love in being energetically conscientious and being energetically protective of the counterpart energy. Now, again, one of the lessons that we see that a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union is working on is the difference between how one might energetically navigate something versus how someone is asking you to hold it. So we see even now that some of the energy coming into divine union today may be feeling that sense of wrestling with that space in between. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in separation, this is a lot of that same energy of excitement that we saw was occurring for a lot of the energy in separation. Why? Because we saw and identified that for a lot of the energy in separation right now, that feeling of finding counterpart energy, potentially making new energetic connections, building some of these new bridges, encountering energy that may even be feeling like you're not necessarily having gone through the same path work, but having shared the same lessons from that work. That creates that sense of wanting to rush forward, wanting to really move with a lot of vitality towards something right now. And we see, what did we see was happening last week? We saw a lot of that energy was almost holding themselves back, not wanting to get ahead of themselves. So we see a lot of that same feeling here. Masculine, it might be a little bit more intense today. For the masculine energy, and this is what we want to be conscientious of, that could lead to a lot of masculine really trying to rush forward in something, and feminine, that moment of potentially feeling a little bit more defensive. So this is how these energies are navigating this space. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Can I have the second card, please, to get further clarity on this? Clarification, heavily on plans. Working through that path work, building that energetic path forward. The most productive way to utilize this type of energy is working on the long-term path work, working on the long-term goals. What do we see that a lot of the energy working through healing is doing right now? They are navigating the difference between how they energetically feel in the moment versus where they energetically plan to be in the long term, right? So even now, this is really beautiful energy to see in separation, because for a lot of the energy in separation, why is there that modality of trying to slow something down energetically at a moment that you may feel like you want to rush ahead? Because these energies are not seeking immediate gratification. They're not seeking that immediate energetic connection. These are energies that are trying to work on that pathwork of building towards something that feels like it is important to them. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy in separation, that ability of thinking, I want to say energetically clearly at a moment that like a part of you is getting more reactive right now, that could be a lot of the difficulty or the hurdles that are being experienced right now in those communications. And that's either, like I said, new potential partnerships, that feeling of energetic excitement that one is feeling in seeing something and feeling that excitement in terms of like being able to see something that feels like it's got longer term potentiality, because that's what a lot of the energy and separation is doing right now, versus that desire of being more reactive, of wanting to rush towards something, right? So a little bit of navigating this right now. And I need to stress, this can be positive, productive, so long as you're moving with intentionality and allowing yourself to ground through it. Got to really be warned today about those triggers, not allowing yourself to get reactive today, not allowing yourself to kind of rush forward in that way, but trying to think more on that long-term aspect or situation or circumstance. While for feminine energy right now in separation, a lot of that same feeling, because we see that for a lot of the feminine energy, this is a lot of feminine energy right now in separation that is almost moving in a much slower way as it relates to new connections. And we see even now the feminine energy, that ability to do so is creating that space of not wanting to repeat lessons of the past. This is feminine energy that is almost articulating upon their experiences of the past to help that energy recognize why they are moving in such a way that they are, why they are taking more of that steady approach. Because what do we identify occurs often when we see these energies? When masculine desires something, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine has an ability to rush forward. Feminine often pulls back, starts moving more slowly. masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This same coursework, this same ability, this building into that space or place of intimacy, we saw that these energies were almost giving each other the energetic wounds over the last few weeks, having that place of showing someone an insecurity, showing a doubt and fear, the other being able to take it. And not only take it, but hold it in such a way as one would desire and aspire that it be held. That is that moment that we see that these energies are being very fastidious and conscientious of how they're carrying something. And it almost feels energetically oppositional in some spaces and places to how they themselves might effectively like to engage upon healing something, right? So we see even now that that's a bit of that confrontation of the trigger. But this is almost the energy that we see. They're not navigating their own energetic triggers. They're navigating the triggers that they're experiencing, having to hold or holding the energy of the wound of the counterpart. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, this is a lot of that same stop and start that we are seeing around these circumstances and situations. If these are energies that are having internal breakthroughs, they're navigating spaces and places that they may have felt the insecurity, they may have moved towards something, holding wounds that they may have been holding since before they even entered the divine union frequency. The ability to see something from a different perspective is actually creating that opportunity of being able to engage with it in a different way. And that is why we see that this is more of that feeling of energetic excitement that is occurring, because that is the energy that doesn't feel like that is coming from a point of reactivity. That feels like a breakthrough in relationality to insight or understanding of the self that is allowing you to engage in something in a different way. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is Page of Cups in its reversal. It's having a different reactivity point for masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine energy right now, this is a lot of seriousness. This is a lot of seriousness that's coming through right now for a lot of the masculine energy. And a lot of this, I have to say, this is a work for the energy of the divine union frequency. This is allowing oneself to not only look at one's own self in a certain context right now, but this is the work of being able to look at the past version of self with that same level and degree of clarity. Because what happens when we experience an energetic breakthrough within the self, it's not just the fact that it impacts our immediate moment, it impacts all of our experiences prior to that point. So we see even now a lot of the masculine energy going through this work right now. This is really that sense of energetically recognizing and seeing oneself in such a way that it's almost giving you new ability to be able to come into a point of correction. And a lot of that is, I have to say, there's a lot of focus here right now. There's a lot of energetic focus on the part of the masculine energy, because this is masculine energy that not only is moving with a lot of determination in the present, but they're also working to take that energetic accountability for the past version of self. So this is, again, the healing of the inner child wound within the masculine energy, with a change of perspective that is allowing not only an internal breakthrough point, but a sense of energetic activation on how that is affecting your day-to-day, how it's affecting how you move, how you think, how you operate. Feminine energy, a lot of that same path work right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is feminine energy that's working more on grounding right now. This is going to feel less like an activation point for the feminine, but this is more the feminine energy not coming into a reactivity space. This is the feminine energy being able to almost move with more energetic slowness, because if this is feminine energy that's doing this work right now in the divine union frequency, identifying their own triggers. A lot of that could be also adjusting their own past experiences and relationships from the context of seeing things from a different energetic perspective. This is not only happening right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is happening happening across all of the frequencies in different ways. For the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, this is that moment that really feels a bit more, I want to say, it feels a bit more curatorial. it feels a bit more protective. It feels a bit more energetically protective. A lot of the work right now for energy coming into the divine union frequency is not allowing oneself to become triggered by becoming overly protective around the counterpart today. That's effectively what we're seeing, because this is almost the energy that we're seeing that is feeling something that on one hand, if it was something that was via V happening within the self, it wouldn't create something that feels as energetically reactive today. But what we almost see that is occurring here is that these are energies that are holding one another's wounds. They're in that point of holding intimacy for one another. This is almost that moment where someone is, you build like a heightened degree of sensitivity in relationality to another's experience that sometimes can almost make you more reactive to something that's happening outside of the self as opposed to something that was happening internally within you. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, this is a lot of new communication that we see is occurring right now in separation. The most important facet about a lot of this communication that we see is happening right now for energy and separation is that change of perspective. A change of perspective or priority is allowing a lot of new breakthroughs via V conversation today. It can feel potentially like triggering territory or the moment of feeling something that may have effectively energetically triggered you from the past. But what are these energies doing right now? Are they reacting to that? No, they are observing their own reactivity point and almost immediately allowing that to recalibrate. So what I'm going to say today's one of those days that's going to feel potentially like there are challenging conversations that are rising up. Potentially even, again, that expression that we saw a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency was doing is now taking the lessons going towards the energy and separation. What was the energy in the divine union frequency doing just a few days ago? The energy just a few days ago was working through pathwork that typically triggered them, but now does not create that same reactivity zone. And now we see that a lot of the energy in separation is doing that same work. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here the Star card. So this is a little bit of a nail biter today across all of the frequencies. If you're feeling any of this like out of sortsness, this is going to be why. We've got feminine energy here. This is the reactivity point in the change in perspective. Feminine feeling more energetically vulnerable, more easily able to be feeling energetically wounded today, right? Feminine not necessarily allowing themselves to come into that state or space of energetic reactivity. Why? Because this is feminine energy that is not trying to go into that space or place of feeling energetically disempowered. This is, I told you, this is a feminine, these things take time, right? This is feminine energy in separation that's still in that moment of taking what may have felt like an energetic boundary and turning it into a standard. Feminine energy, if you're going through this and it's coming in like bits and starts, that doesn't mean that you're effectively energetically backsliding. It means that some days it's harder to do than others. And so what is the feminine energy doing to help ground themselves at this moment? They're giving themselves the perspective on how they feel right now in comparison with the long view approach, right? That ability of feeling and recognizing the difference between a momentary energetic feeling versus something that feels like it energetically passes. This is the feminine energy almost immediately, even in separation, not allowing themselves to become energetically triggered, specifically because this is energy that is doing that work in identifying and recognizing what exists within the self versus what is experienced without. That is how the feminine energy in separation is navigating a lot of these processes, and it is allowing for a lot of energetic breakthroughs in communication for energy in separation, because this is the feminine energy that is not projecting outwards something that is an internal feeling. They are almost assessing first. They're using that same energetic discernment that we spoke about, that they were putting outside the self, and they are utilizing it and integrating it within the self in the process. While for masculine energy, you are also potentially doing a lot of this work right now in separation, because what do we see here with masculine energy? This could be a realm of difficult conversations, a lot of intimacy being navigated right now. Masculine, even feeling that energetic feeling, something rising up within you that may typically create that trigger point. What is the masculine doing right now? Keeping their energetic perspective, identifying and saying to themselves, do I feel that this is something that warrants that type of energetic reactivity? Or is this an opportunity? I told you, like seeing the army come rushing out of the closet and saying, like, you got to go back in there. I know that you're here to try to energetically protect me, but this isn't the time. Like, that's the masculine energy doing this work right now in separation. And both of these energies challenging themselves. So across all of the spectrums right now, we've got challenging conversations, and the breakthroughs are potentially occurring not in the fact that something hasn't stopped being challenging to discuss, but the observational point of the self in the process of navigating through them is what is allowing for something productive to happen, even in a moment that may feel more difficult. Right? And these energies, and this is what's happening right now for a lot of the energy coming into divine union, recognizing the fact that you're both doing that. Recognizing the fact that these energies are both doing that in different ways and holding empathy for the way that you're both experiencing the same energetic frequency, but you're expressing it in different ways is what is facilitating a lot of the energy right now coming into divine union as building more of that tie that binds. Because what do we see here? We've got that energy that almost recognizes and says they're experiencing something in the same way, but in different ways. Feminine energy, feeling that sense of pushing through their own energetic vulnerability. Is feminine allowing that to overwhelm the self? No, feminine energy is navigating that as an internal hurdle that they're trying to correct. Is the masculine energy becoming reactive, subjecting the feminine to that feeling of the trigger being like struck around a difficult conversation? No, the masculine is recalibrating by saying, I'm healing that inner child. There's something within me that when it feels threatened, I send out my little toy army to go to war for me. Like, that's the energetic equivalent of the masculine, almost looking at their own energetic ego to a certain extent and saying, I need to be able to control my own army. I need to be able to navigate my own feelings of expression. I need to sort through what feels like it is helpful versus what are those moments that the thing that's within me that tries to protect me sometimes becomes energetically harmful. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy that is coming into divine union, even this path work, it may feel very energetically vulnerable, but what are these energies doing? Are they reacting and subjecting each other to what they're both internally experiencing? Are they talking about it? Yeah, they're talking about how they experience something. They're not subjecting the other to what they're experiencing. And that is what's allowing even that moment, I told you, what could feel like a little bit of this energy today, to feel like it is productive. And the path to be able to feel like it is productive is one that is built on empathy, right? And it's built on articulating how you feel instead of subjecting another to what you are energetically feeling. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, in the heart of the divine union frequency, a lot of this work just in a deeper context, because this could be some processing of some long held stuff. This could be some these are some old wounds. We identified that for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency, this is even going beyond the tangible space, and it's hitting a lot of that metaphysical area right now. And what we really see is a lot of this energy looking back on like childhood wounds. So the only key difference that we're identifying right now across all of these frequencies is how external this is, whether this is happening via new energetic connections, or whether this is happening and holding the wounds of another, or whether if you're in the heart of the divine union frequency, feeling energetically safe enough to go into that deep dive within the self that allows you to confront things that you would typically not feel energetically safe, seen, and supported to confront, that can feel, again, it's that moment that you recognize that you're having a breakthrough. It can just feel like a very vulnerable breakthrough. What are these energies doing right now to support one another? They're letting each other know that they're energetically there, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today. We got 2 cards popping out. This one just decided it wanted to show up. Oh, Oh, and these two together, geez Louise, the energy today is fun, isn't it? What do we have here? We've got our 6 and our 8 of Pentacles in its reversal. Okay, I'm just going to put it this way. A lot of potential misunderstandings today, a lot of energetic confusions, a lot of energetic frustrations potentially coming through. And that ability to recognize, like, what is allowing this to be pathwork that feels like it is energetically productive. This is that moment or opportunity that we are able to identify that has a lot to do with not exacerbating or making something, I have to say, this is that moment of not increasing like something that you feel is frustrating that you are receiving, right? It's giving a little bit of that energy that's required right now in terms of like that feeling of like the buck stops here to a certain extent, right? Because we see even now what happens when we experience something from the past. What happens when we do that deep work in experiencing something? Like, why is the energy in the divine union going so deep within their own self to try to find those vulnerabilities, to try to find those weaknesses for the sake of, if not, and here's what's beautiful about it, if not the ability to replicate, the ability to stop, the ability to stop that. If these are old wounds, if these are old insecurities, I told you, the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, they're not just doing this for the sake of the self. This is the energy that keeps thinking in that grander scheme, saying that if this is that moment that I can navigate through something, if I can understand something about myself that has caused or created that hurdle for me, then if I cannot stop it within myself, at least I can recognize it so I can bring it to a stop when it comes up, or I can make sure that I don't subject others to it. This is energy that's on that pathwork, and it's so much beyond. This is not that moment. Like, this is what really happens. It's not even about the perfection of the self. It's perfecting the energy around you, right? It's being energetically mindful in that way. So we see that that's that moment that can feel like a breakthrough, but it can almost feel energetically painful as you experience it, because that's that moment that you're like, you can't remove it from you. But sometimes just being able to observe it creates that sense of pain, but it also creates that sense of purpose in making sure that you're identifying something that you could not see, all for the sake of being able to navigate it more energetically effectively. Masculine and feminine energy right now, this is the energy, this is the result of experiencing and taking on the wounds of another. This is the energy of taking on the energetic wounds of another, because we even saw, I told you guys, we saw that a lot of these energies are coming into that deepened sense of vulnerability. Building upon understanding each other has almost allowed these energies to recognize their vulnerabilities, recognizing their insecurities, and even more so than just understanding each other's vulnerabilities and insecurities, understanding like the root source of them, potentially even understanding the root source of them better than someone can identify and see them, right? What is that sense? What is that gift that compassion creates for us? That moment that we say, and we don't mean it in a patronizing fashion. When we say, I know them better than they know themselves, what we mean by that is like, like energetically you say, I can see that spot on their back that they can't see. Like I can see those parts of them that are so close to them that I bet they couldn't even identify them. But this is the energy that almost is becoming like, are they trying to change that within each other? No, they're becoming more custodious. They're becoming more protective. They're becoming more energetically protective of each other for that sake. And we see even now that the ability of that energy to do so, it's almost feeling a bit frustrating to a certain extent, right? Because that's that moment that like you can't necessarily do something about it, right? You can't necessarily adjust for it. You just have to kind of allow yourself to like bear that energetic burden. So we see even now, this could be a little bit frustrating to some degree, either on an internal level, trying to navigate the depth of feeling that way, right? Or potentially, if this is happening more on a tangible front right now, this is that feeling of trying to navigate something in a way that you're both, again, what's a good argument? Both desiring the same energetic outcome in the long term, but having potential different ways of navigating it towards it. While for masculine and feminine energy in separation right now, I told you a lot of this energy in separation is just cutting to the chase really quickly. You're just, a lot of this energy and healing right now is just not dealing with the pleasantries. They're skipping a lot of that, I want to say a lot of that more egotistic kind of like facade conversation, if you will, right? Like, this is energy that is working very hard to not only build into new energetic experiences, but doing it with a sense of deep energetic transparency. That's hard. Like, that's very hard, because doing so can feel very triggering, right? For feminine energy, this could be resulting, if these are either new energetic connections or energies that are trying to repair something, being very, very authentic. Even to like a moment of like feminine energy experiencing and expressing their own insecurities, right? This is feminine energy that's not trying to put on a facade. They're trying to show the masculine, their truest authentic expression of self, being like, what you see is what you get. Like, I am not energetically perfect, and I'm trying to show you that. It's hard for the feminine, because that's almost the feminine that's leading with those parts of the self that they don't typically openly are, like, that they would typically try to cover. Masculine is doing that same work, navigating through places or spaces where, I told you, that like little, like, that little hidden army in the closet wants to come out to energetically protect themselves, and masculine is trying to push their own like reactivity point away, as they're also trying to meet the feminine in that same space of authenticity. Both of these energies doing this, having and experiencing productive conversations as a result of it. But guess what? It's hard. It's difficult, because these energies are almost like checking themselves as they proceed forward in this way. But that's that moment that they're almost amplifying in that sense of saying something needs to hurt because I'm trying to heal it, right? I'm doing something in a way that I haven't done before because I recognize that this is the way that I want to do it. Leading with intention can sometimes feel very difficult. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Swords and our Two of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Why would someone do that? Why would someone do that to themselves? You ask, why would someone energetically do that? Because it's working. Because it's working. Because these energies, even the energies in separation right now, this is saying to me that these energies are having breakthroughs in communication. They're having something that is getting energetically healed right now. And that healing is either coming through via restoration, being able to have an authentic conversation about someone with someone that you haven't effectively been able to have before because the energies are approaching it in this fashion, or these are new energetic connections that have learned the lessons of the past and they're employing what feels like difficult path work, moving out of their comfort zones because they're seeing immediate results in how much easier something can be if you just let it, if you challenge yourself to, like, in that difficult. I know that sounds a little counter to itself, but how easy something can be if you're willing to challenge yourself in the process, right? That's what these energies are working through right now in separation. And it sounds a little topsy-turvy, but that's the thing. Falling into the easy patterns, falling into the easy habits. If these are energies that are like, that doesn't work, I'm not doing that anymore. Feminine's like, it would be easy for me to pretend I'm someone I'm not, or become the thing I know you aspire to do. I'm not going to do that. Masculine going, it's easy for me to try to energetically lead with my ego. I'm going to cut myself off there. Both of these energies saying, I'm just trying to show you my authentic sense of self. And they're immediately feeling the validation point in doing so. Something is immediately almost coming into that sense of recognizing something that feels energetically healthier, even if it's hard to do in the process. It's like they're like eating their veggies. You know what I mean? Masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union. This is a little bit more titchy. I'm going to tell you right now, this is titchier. This is much titchier the higher you go up right now. Higher up in the more you go into the divine union frequency, this is more energetically frustrating because this is something that is having tangible results in separation. The energy right now coming into divine union, this is that moment, like what happens when you start feeling energetically protective over something that is outside your own self that you cannot control. Love's fun. That's that moment that you feel, because that's that energy we see here. These are energies that are almost getting reactive via V for the sake of the counterpart, but they're also trying to navigate the way the counterpart wants to energetically carry something. So even now it feels like that sense of energetic frustration. Making sure that you move it into that path of productivity today is important, because this could be a lot of potential miscommunications and triggers around two energies that want to do the same thing, but they have a very different way on how they want to navigate it. Masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. This is some painful catharsis. This is some painful catharsis, because a lot of this is just feeling the relief of understanding and perception coming into play. A lot of this work that we see to a certain extent, this is long gone. What do you do with a wound that you're understanding in a way that is so far back in the past? It doesn't give, this is energy that even now being able to do this work, it's not so much an act of facilitating upon it, but almost seeing something in such a way that you can be even more energetically mindful in terms of not letting it bleed out into spaces and places where you might have unconsciously been holding that expression of that wound. So we see even now that for a lot of that energy, it's bittersweet, right? It's almost that feeling of like easement within the self, but almost that feeling of having experienced or expressed something that you don't feel like you energetically should have experienced in the first place, and just holding space for the past self in the process. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Swords and its upright in combination with our Page of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with, oh, geez, look at this. 10 of Wands in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. If you're doing this work, as I said, there's potentially even an aspect to this. I told you, this is a lot of this work, a lot of this internal work is so far back in the past that there isn't even too much that you can facilitate and do upon it, right? There's a lot of this work right now, and it's more just, I want to say, energetically holding space in observing something from a different perspective. It doesn't necessarily make something easier, but it does, because that ability to see something is creating that sense of energetic purpose. It's creating that sense of clarity. It's creating that, like, that sense of being able to shed something, because your own ability of recognizing it and how you carry. Sometimes we heal by being able to energetically release something. Sometimes we heal by being able to carry something in a different way. And so what we see and identify for a lot of the energy right now in the heart of the divine union is observing something in a different way, potentially something from like way in the past, is building that sense of being able to carry something in a better way that feels more energetically productive, right? That in itself is almost the amplification and articulation of the breakthrough. Well, for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union frequency, this isn't necessarily feeling so much like a breakthrough and being able to carry something. You're trying to figure out how to carry something that you haven't had to carry before. Because as we saw over the last few weeks, a lot of this energy building into the heart of intimacy almost meant that sense of taking on another person's wounds, carrying them, not just the way you would typically carry something, but being energetically mindful of how another wishes something to be carried. So what are these energies doing right now? They're shuffling, they're rearranging their packs. They're doing that work in terms of trying to navigate in such a way that they can hold something in a place that is comfortable, but also not allowing it to create that sense of reactivity, right? So that's like a moment, it can feel a little frustrating, because even now that's that moment of feeling like energetically triggered. And you're not even feeling triggered for something that has occurred to yourself. It's something that you're feeling and experiencing that is happening to the counterpart that creates that feeling in you. That's the energy that's like trying to like navigate carrying that and being like, it's not even like this is the energy. It's like, it's because I would navigate it in this way, but I can't. I'm doing this for that. You know what I mean? Like it's that type of energetic equivalent. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, this is doing that hard work in building either, again, new energetic connections or restoring a past energetic connection. But I have to stress this again. This is not the type of restoring of a path work of someone just coming back and being like, hi, I'm here. Like, this is the type of energy of like someone really saying like, I have made a lot of energetic changes. I am no longer the person who you knew me to be. And these are energies that are almost articulating on the journey that has occurred to amplify what has energetically changed via any type of energy here of restoration, which I do see in some of the collective right now. While for other parts of the collective, these are the energies that are introducing one another to each other, and they are recognizing and identifying each other because they are navigating forward in this way from a place of authenticity and honesty. These are energies that are not leaving the past in the past. They're almost carrying them forward with them. They're bringing them forward immediately to almost express and show the fact that the way that they're moving in this way is a result of those energetic lessons. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Page of Cups. And what's beautiful about this, and this is why it's so difficult, these are energies that are not in that state or space of saying like, oh, I've gone on this whole journey and all these terrible things happen to me and I don't know why. These are energies that are like, I recognize my own part in my experience. I work to find the accountability. I work to navigate the discernment. I work to let those moments, even when they're difficult, empower me forward, because this is that moment that we identify and recognize that these are effectively, this is why this work feels like it's hard, because these energies don't just like flippantly move into energetic connection. They're very, very intentional and very, very mindful because they've had a lot of energetic experiences. They're trying to make those energetic experiences have value by being able to come through in such a way that they're saying to themselves, this is how I'm changing something. I'm constantly in that path of change. Continuing to get clarification between our Page of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Star in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Six of Cups. And we love to see this card today because what we're effectively identifying is why are these energies going to so much trouble in separation to do this work? Because these energies are approaching relationships from a different perspective. They're working on that pathwork of creating healthy energetic connections. This is the prioritization point, even for the energy in separation right now, right? And that's what's really lovely about it. These energies, and I told you that sense of doing it in a grander way. These energies are very mindful about the energy around them, of creating a space or place that feels like it's energetically positive. And what are these energies doing in the process? Feminine energy, almost coming into that state of saying, I have to be in that modality where I can be my authentic expression of self, even in those spaces and places of addressing my own insecurities, putting those difficulties in front of the masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. I'm the feminine energy challenging their own self in that way, trying to lead with that sense of authenticity, because this is the feminine energy that's almost saying in separation, I don't want to create this illusion of who I am that I recognize one day you're going to understand is not that. Masculine, moving in that same modality of saying, I want to move towards you with that same sense of authenticity, because I don't want to create that illusory space wherein I give you or offer you something that I don't intend to move forward with, because that's almost me moving off of my own manifestation goals. So both of these energies right now doing all of that hard work in challenging their own selves, moving towards vulnerability, but for the sake of building an authentic energetic connection from the start. Or these are energies that are rebuilding energetic connections from a place of having learned some deep, valuable energetic connections on the journey back towards one another. Masculine, and this is not just falling back into some kind of modality. This is the energy that's doing that hard work to assess and ascertain if there is the possibility of restoring and healing an energetic connection. masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is the hurdle and difficulty that one experiences at moments and opportunities wherein what happens when you effectively recognize and understand to a certain degree, when you feel that sense of empathy and care, when you're holding another's insecurities and you're not even holding them the way that you would typically hold something, but you're holding them the way that you know the other desires them to be carried. This is that moment that these energies are challenging one another not to become reactive due to holding those wounds for another, because that is the sense of energetic compassion that they hold towards each other. Like that's that moment that almost feels like the expression of love, because these energies are not even thinking about their own selves. They're thinking there's a lot of conscientiousness that is spent on looking towards the counterpart, right? These are energies that are almost that moment. And these aren't energies that, again, they're not working in that like illusory space. These are energies that see one another's insecurities. They hold them and carry them as their own. And that in itself immediately almost allows for that ability to heal something in the long term while carrying something energetically in the short term. And these aren't energies that are looking towards the other and saying like this needs to change in order for us to maintain a viable connection. But this is the energy that's almost affirming to themselves and saying, I see that weakness, I see that vulnerability, I see that wound they're carrying, and I'm going to make it my like job to try to heal that, to be able, because of that sense of not wanting to see another in that sense of energetic pain. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is potentially releasing a lot of pain of the past self. This is a lot of healing of old trauma, of old wounds. And a lot of that work, what feels like it is energetically difficult about it, is not necessarily even being able to fully relinquish something, but coming into better understanding of why that trigger was formed, why that wound was formed, why that insecurity was formed. That in itself is how the energy is working to heal it, because through understanding, almost looking to the self and saying, that was a moment that I experienced something that created that wound in me, that immediately allows for an opportunity to face something in a way that you're able to navigate even your own insecurities from a state or space of heightened empathetic compassion. And these are energies that, again, not doing this, not leaning on the energy of the counterpart to do so, but seeing that work happening, seeing that you're navigating those spaces and places together. That in itself feels like that sense of energetic restoration, because it's that reminder that you're not alone on that energetic journey. Continuing to get clarity on these cards right now between our star in its reversal in combination with our Six of Cups, Pentacles in its reversal in combination with our Eight of Pentacles in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Three of Cups in its upright. Masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of the divine union frequency. What do we see is occurring here? That moment or that opportunity wherein you look at something from a different perspective. That is what like even that sense here in divine union is what is allowing for that feeling of energetic breakthrough. Because a lot of that is coming through to a certain extent as the observation of, again, what was experienced versus what was controlled from without. So for feminine, a lot of this may have to do with feminine in the divine union frequency, confronting those insecurities, confronting those doubts of the self, and having that modality of experience right now and looking at something and saying to oneself, is that experience, is that insecurity, is that wound something that you are energetically carrying because it makes you feel better, it makes you feel strong, or is it something that feels like, again, something that wanted to suppress you, something that wanted to limit you, something that wanted to like again, this is a lot of the feminine energy. We saw the masculine doing this several days ago, right? This is the feminine doing this, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. In the same way that the masculine was, looking at the doubts of the self and doing that discernment and saying, is that something that is within me that I'm not meeting my own energetic standard? Or is that because I was trying to conform to something outside of the self that made me feel like I was energetically lacking, that made me feel that I was not good enough, that made me feel like I was not deserving enough? Like, that's a lot of the feminine energy working through that path work. And even the observational point in recognizing that feels like an energetic celebration for the feminine, right? Because that's the difference of identifying a wound that was created within the self, not being able to meet your own energetic standard, versus recognizing something that you've been carrying because someone made you feel like you were unworthy or energetically undeserving. While for masculine energy right now, same energetic modality that's happening in the heart of the divine union frequency, and a lot of it having to do with that sense of not coming into that state or space of holding oneself energetically accountable for what is effectively out of your own control. Because we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy, if these are wounds that you're carrying from some sense or some space of some kind of deep energetic rejection point from the past, this is that masculine energy that's almost again reaffirming to themselves that if there was anything that you experience via the rejection from a feminine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that wasn't necessarily caused because of something that you were or were not doing, but more having to do with energetic alignment or navigating whether there was something there that you could have done differently versus something that you were experiencing. Both of these energies having those breakthroughs, and it's almost that moment via the partnership of having the counterpart there that's just there to affirm what those breakthroughs are, to make sure that you feel like you're energetically accurate in your own assessment. That's what I mean about that sense of not doing the work for each other, but feeling the valuation point and being able to navigate through something with someone that is able to amplify and articulate the lessons that you're energetically taking from something. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, a lot of this energy is trying to shoulder the burden of carrying something that is not yours, that you are holding with compassion for the counterpart, and you're feeling that moment of adjustment, right? Because a lot of this energy right now, it creates senses of frustration when you feel like you have to carry the wounds that you yourself did not create for another, right? That can be triggering. That can make you defensive. And we see even now that for a lot of the energy navigating that is that moment that you feel joyful in doing so. And you're trying to maintain a positivity point on it because you're amplifying that sense of, again, what did I say what's happening right now? Feminine, trying to let go of that bitterness. Masculine, trying to let go of that regret. Both of these energies almost taking it on for the other, which can be very difficult because you can't change someone's previous path work, but you have to almost navigate through it. And these energies are doing so by finding the ability of holding through that without allowing themselves to get triggered, right? While for masculine, and so that could articulate something that feels like it is difficult, but almost amplifying that sense of saying, we can do hard things, right? Because that's that moment of saying, that isn't a burden that someone is putting on another. That is almost the burden that one experiences simply by being in the energetic of connection with another. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, that is in separation, this is a lot of new energetic connection that is articulating on these experiences, right? And these are energies, I need to say, the reason that these new energetic connections are happening are not because these energies are caught in the past. These aren't energies that are bringing bitterness, right? These aren't energies that are moving in that low vibration of saying like, no, I'm really bitter and angry about everything that's happened to this point. And this is not masculine going, I just live in complete regret of something that I shouldn't have done differently. These are energies that say, I bear that burden, but I also I appreciate and experience the moment in the present, recognizing and identifying that the present is where the past can be rectified and healed. And so even now, that ability of these energies encountering one another and just seeing someone who has that similaritude in perspective, That is why we see that there may be so many new energetic connections that are happening right now. Because even if these are just friendships, this is that feeling of seeing someone and feeling like you're on the same page, even if you've had different books, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 9 of Swords in its reversal in combination with our 10 of Wands in its upright. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the Moon card. So the one advantage to all of this right now. And I got to say, we've been seeing this. I got to just point out, we have been seeing this card coming up like hotcakes ever since that Scorpio full moon. Ever since that Scorpio full moon, we've been getting this Moon card in its reversal. And this is that feeling of the energetic honesty coming into play. Moving from a place of honesty. It's harder. It's energetically more difficult when you navigate from a place of honesty. But it's difficult, but it also makes things a lot easier, right? What is the energy in separation working through right now? All of this still coming through as a result of that Scorpio full moon. Something about bringing honesty to situations sooner. That's what we see a lot of the energy in separation is doing right now, being as authentic and honest sooner, which simultaneously makes something much harder and much easier at the same time. The truth is like that, right? And so that's either creating a path of restoration if honesty is being expressed in a space or place where honesty was not received before, right? That's the valuation point and feeling like something can move into a place of progression if that sense of clarity is being provided. Or these are energies that are encountering each other on that journey, and their priority is energetic honesty, right? And that in itself is the perspective that is allowing for a lot of this energy. It's slow going, right? It's like momentum building because it's almost like a trust exercise in building into a relationship. But that's also because it is a relationship that is built on trust, right? The relationship building should feel like a trust exercise. While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union, this is having to navigate someone else's truth that is now on your back. This is just having to carry someone else's honesty, those insecurities, those vulnerabilities, and just adding them onto adding them on as your own. Are these energies unhappy doing it? No. Does it make things harder? Yes. But are these energies unhappy doing it? No, because that's the energy or the frequency of love, right? Love is not the expression of doing the things that feel like they're energetically easy. Love is often the expression of doing something that you're like, this is so hard, but because of the love, because of the honesty, that is what allows something to be able to move forward to a certain extent. So we see even now that feeling is both, that's that feeling, it's like the energy of the anchor that is light as air, right? That is the anchor that is light as air, right? That is the gravity and the ecstasy coming in at once, because that is the energy of the compassionate space, the heaviness of the burden combined with the joy it is to carry it. That is the expression of love that we see in carrying and navigating another's insecurities, but in such a way that we don't subject the other to them, but we hold them in a space of navigating and carrying them with us as we go. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Wands in its upright and our 6 of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with the 5 of Wands. Even now, we see that for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency, a lot of this path work, it's hard. Like I'm going to say, today is like one of those days that feels energetically fraught. We even see here, I got to stress this. This is why I keep saying to everybody today, this is one of those days. Today is not the day to be triggered. Today is not the day to be triggered. Today is not the day to like react to how you're energetically thinking, feeling. Today is a day to like keep some kind of energetic perspective to a certain extent, because look at this. We've got the combination here of the 10 of Wands with the 5 of Wands, right? Recognizing what's going to help you with this type of energy. You're not alone in feeling it. The hurdle today is if you get myopic and you feel like you're like, if you get all hard on yourself and you feel like you're the only one energetically carrying a burden, today's not going to be an easy day for you. Today's not going to, it's going to be very difficult, because that sense of recognition that if you're feeling and bearing something that is energetically difficult, so is everyone around you is also going through that right now. That feeling, that is what is allowing a lot of the energy, what's happening in the energy in the divine union frequency right now. A lot of the energy healing understands that. The navigation point through that is empathy. The navigation point through that is helping to recognize and understand empathetically that sense of the weight that everyone is energetically carrying. For a lot of masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of divine union frequency, this is potentially unpacking a lot of that weight that you may have been carrying for a long time, particularly around old wounds, old traumas, things that you may not necessarily have experienced. They may be coming up a lot right now, but they're coming up because your own clarity is allowing for that type of path work to get navigated. Masculine, and it's hard because especially this path work of the path, seeing something and understanding something in a different way doesn't always, when you're healing it, it doesn't always make it easier. Sometimes it can make it harder for a minute, because that's that moment that you're seeing something in a different way. And it's like you're experiencing that point of conflict in understanding it. Masculine and feminine energy right now that is coming into divine union. This is that feeling of like wanting to like taking on the burdens of another, and both feeling the energetic heaviness of doing so, but also getting very energetically protective in the process. So I'm going to say it again. I want to make sure that we don't see a lot of energy right now coming into divine union, getting overly protective around counterpart energy, particularly around any of those wounds or any of those insecurities that you're now necessarily carrying with you. Because we see that a lot of it, it's like, it feels more energetically difficult today. And this is a type of energy where it's like almost like one of these moments where it's like, it's not necessarily something that happens to you today that could make you frustrated, but seeing something happening to another, like that's the type of energy that we're seeing today. So just make sure that you're navigating that in a way that feels like it is harmonious, instead of potentially creating any type of like rift energetically. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is like, this is a lot of energy in separation, just doing the hard part first, man. This is a lot of energy in separation, just like not pulling any punches here. Not masquerading, not trying to like put up some kind of like false sense of self. This is energy that's almost having that moment of articulating to one another, of expressing the energetic burden to a certain extent. But I want to stress this. This is energy that is doing so in such a way that they're pushing their own selves in this. This is energy that is pushing through their own vulnerabilities to do so for the sake of building authentic healed connections, right? So even now could be a lot of feelings of conflict that are coming up. But what's hard about this is some of this energy of conflict, I gotta say, some of these energies are now going through the progression of realizing that they're getting closure around something in the minute that they're expressing it. That's why a lot of this energy and separation is feeling like this, because it's almost that moment that as one expresses something, like those moments that you talk about something and you're like, wow, when I talk about it, it sounds a lot worse, right? Like there could be a lot of conversations happening right now with new energetic connections that are almost amplified in that experience of saying, like, when I talk about it, it feels like even more difficult. Because that's that moment of like almost clarity that's coming through around something kind of energetically from the past being over, coming into that state of energetic completion that sometimes, like, even as you're this is energy that's almost like coming into closure spaces, recognizing that building the new energetic connections is a part of that closure. Or these are energies that are healing by addressing whatever those conflicts were, and all of the time that has intervened that has now allowed for a change of perspective. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Six of Cups in combination with our Three of Cups. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with our Emperor card, and it's in its upright. So, you know, I gotta say, masculine and feminine energy right now. And it's funny because if you'll recall about 2 days ago, like the last reading we did, I said that it was definitely a moment where the feminine was feeling more energetically grounded and secure. Today is one that we see feels more, I want to say, it feels more energetic. The same energy that we saw in the feminine is now expressing itself in the masculine. But with the masculine energy right now, a lot of that feeling like the strength of energetic conviction. Why? Because we identify that for a lot of the path work of masculine energy on this journey right now, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. What set you forward on this path? Conviction. Setting a path of purpose, identifying and looking at the past regret and letting that kind of create the shape of that path of purpose going forward. So it's not surprising for us to see these modalities, even in separation right now, where like this is not masculine. This is masculine energy. I got to stress this. This is masculine energy talking about the past that amplifies the clarity of the process of having moved beyond it. Because this is a masculine energy that's almost articulating to feminine in separation and saying, I'm not talking about the past because I long to return to that space. I'm talking about the past because I've affirmed and resolved never to go back there. And that's either something that is happening within the masculine self, coming into that shift of priorities, saying via V, I recognize what I have changed within myself. And I'm talking about the past openly because I'm almost looking at that past version of self like a different person. Because I am no longer that person. I can't even associate my actions to who I am today. Or that is masculine energy that says, I recognize the changes that I've made as it relates to my own prioritization. I can talk openly about that person because I value those experiences. I value that understanding. I don't run away from myself. I run towards myself to understand myself better, to become a more perfect version of myself. So we see even now, this is a lot of that masculine energy that is even in the ability to talk through those spaces and places is almost, again, what happens in those moments that we're able to discuss our vulnerabilities. A vulnerability that is discussed becomes our strength because we see ourselves with such clarity that even in the places that we are insecure, they become a part of ourselves because we integrate them as well. So we see that a lot of that masculine energy right now in separation, that ability to take accountability for everything, positive and negative, right? Like that is what is allowing a lot of the masculine energy to have that energetic breakthrough, because that's that moment of masculine saying, it's not that I'm perfect, but I try to be. I try to be. While for feminine energy, seeing a masculine energy on that path of purpose, that is that moment that again amplifies the feeling of energetic breakthrough. Because that is the feminine energy either recognizing masculine that's gone through a journey of the self and is working through those circumstances and situations. And that's the feminine energy saying, as long as you're doing that, as long as you're recognizing that, like it's not our job to be perfect. Right? That is the energy of the feminine in separation feeling that sense. And this is be a lot of feminine energy right now, making new potential connections to masculine energy. And either, again, like I'm seeing here, this is the feminine energy and separation being like proof of life. Like it exists. Like it exists. Even if this is feminine energy, like making new connections, even if like this is like friendship connections or something like that, seeing a masculine in any modality right now that is able to navigate forward in that way, it feels like an energetic breakthrough to the feminine, because feminine's like, it validates all, even if this is not this, I'm getting here, even if this is this, if this is a lot of feminine and separation going, even if this is not my masculine, it proof of life, there it is, this can happen. Like this is not a snuffleupagus. This is something that like really exists. This is something that can be seen. And so even now that could be a moment for a lot of the feminine energy that feels like that moment of like healing, even in the expression of, I have to say, even if this is just like new, even if these are friendships right now, even if this is family, there's some kind of connection that feminine's making in separation right now that's like reaffirming their own faith in masculine energy. While for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming into divine union, this is a lot of that energetic equivalent that we're seeing right now of, again, even in these vulnerabilities, these are energies that feel like they're introducing each other to their insecurities and weaknesses and what is happening in those moments. Are these energies that are trying to come into that path of correction? Are these energies be like, you should really work on that. You should really fix that. No, these are energies saying, I don't see anything wrong. I don't see anything wrong. I mean, sure, you're not perfect, but it's not our job to be perfect, right? For masculine and feminine energy, being able to navigate those insecurities, but again, from a place of accountability, of looking at something and saying it's not necessarily required to be perfect, but working towards that to a certain extent. That is that moment that feels like an energetic breakthrough point, because that is the energy that even now coming into divine union feels that sense of alignment in experiencing that moment of being appreciated by the counterpart. What is the feminine experiencing? This is almost the masculine saying to feminine, I don't see anything energetically wrong with you. I feel like maybe you've gone through some things that like made you feel that was the case, but this is the masculine saying, I feel like everything I see, the more I see, the more I love. While for feminine, this is feminine saying to masculine coming into divine union right now, your ability to take accountability for your actions, your ability to always consider, your ability to always move on that path of purpose doesn't require you to be perfect. In fact, I think you're perfect because that is not something that you inhabit. That is something that you act upon. Emperor energy does not just sit in a seat. They move as an emperor. And an emperor protects, and they work through becoming their best version of self to be able to be that version for all of those that they care about. So we see even now a lot of that energetic equivalent is the amplification point that is moving energy deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. While for masculine and feminine in the heart of the divine union frequency, this is the energy that's able to really heal some old, long-held wounds right now via the connection to the counterpart. And I don't mean that in a way of saying that this energy is leaning on another to facilitate that work. This is the energy that feels the support and confidence to be able to go on that introspective journey of the self, to heal what may have felt like it couldn't be healed before, specifically with the sense of recognizing that feeling of encouragement, right? Feminine and masculine validating that work for one another, even as they experience it, even as they go through that internal journey of the self alone. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Continuing to get clarification between our moon card in its reversal and our 5 of Wands. Can I have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Sun card in its reversal. This is heavy stuff. This isn't like sunshine and rainbow work. These are like, This is that work, all of the energy right now, doing that work of doing the hard part first, right? Because that's that moment that almost looks towards some things right now and almost saying to a certain extent, just because something is energetically hard to do doesn't mean that it isn't worthwhile to do it, right? This is almost that amplification on why this path work is so important and so valuable. Because we don't do the important things because they're easy. Typically the easy things, like, they're not as important. We do the hard work because it is important. And we see even now that this is energy in the divine union frequency that is almost reaffirming to themselves the fact that they're navigating through this because they don't want to avoid important, valuable path work just because something is energetically hard to do. This is like the energy of the divine union that basically is recognizing and saying, just because something is unpleasant doesn't mean it isn't important, doesn't mean that it should be avoided. That's that energy that almost feels like that amplification of trying to do that hard thing first today, to be able to navigate through it and just recognize that that's the way things have to be sometimes. The better identification is like sometimes when you're going through something energetically difficult, the best that you can do is make it as energetically less difficult as possible, right? And so we see that that's a lot of this work right now. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now. And this is a lot of the energy in the heart of the divine union, uncovering things. Like I told you, this is energy that may have been like, these are spaces and places that these energies haven't confronted for a long time. So it's no surprise of being like, yeah, this is not something that is pleasant to navigate, but still it's being navigated. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is like the value expression of love, right? Is love expressed in those moments where something is just always energetically easy? Like, is that the energy of love? Or is love those moments that we have to bear, we have to hold space for another person's, pain, hold space for another person's, work, like that ability to do so to a certain extent. That is the energy that we see right now coming into divine union that feels very difficult, because that's that moment of what are these energies doing right now coming into divine union? Do you feel like you can take the burden of another? No. Right? You can't heal someone else's wounds. None of us can effectively heal each other's wounds. We always have to carry them ourselves. But we can hold empathy and we can hold space and we can try to navigate through them effectively. And these are the energies that are effectively working through that pathwork of saying, I don't want to energetically burden you with my doubts, with my fears, with my insecurities. But these energies are also navigating the fact that even when we do so in the best way possible, there are always those moments that we carry that for another. And so these are the energies that are almost saying, like, I can't take those from you. I hope when in time I can heal them. But I also want you to understand that I will hold space for you and navigate them with you as we go. That is that energy that's like really building into the heart of an emotional, intimate connection. Even in those moments that you're holding someone else's own doubts and fears and griefs as you go, right? And that's the energy that's like amplifying and saying, I will be with you as you navigate through them within the self. Continuing to get clarification for the energy and separation right now. This is some heavy conversation. This is some heavy stuff. This is energy that's coming into the in separation. And I got to stress right now, there could be some, there's some triggering conversations potentially. These are hard conversations to have. But what are these energies doing? Are these energies shying away from a difficult conversation? No, these energies in separation are saying better, they're saying better to have a hard conversation now than an impossible conversation later. Like these energies are effectively basically saying, I'm not going to put off what feels like it is energetically difficult. I'm not going to avoid it. I'm going to confront it now, because that's that moment that something might get potentially even harder the longer that we energetically put it off, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Five of Wands in combination with our Emperor card. One card to clarify, please. We've got here our Ace of Wands in its reversal. And this is and I gotta say, I know this energy feels very today, but as long as you're putting it in a positive direction, channel it into art, channel it into writing today. Let this like serve an energetic purpose, because this type of work, when you're experiencing energy like this, the more that you can bring it into a productivity space, something that feels like it is productive, like that's going to help navigate through this right now, right? Especially because there's something so conflicting right now about this energetic signature. It feels rough. It feels reactionary. It is the combination of heaviness while also wanting to take some kind of immediate energetic action. So if you're feeling very reactive today, channel it into a space or place that you feel like that reactivity will serve a positive energetic purpose. So plans, creativity, artistic expression, something that feels like it helps you see the results of that in such a way that it creates that moment that doesn't allow it to feel so energetically triggering, okay? That's happening across all of the frequencies right now. Because this is the type of energy that it serves an energetic function. It serves a purpose, but you have to be very energetic. You have to be very mindful of letting it do so, because it feels very much like it can also feel very reactive. It feels like it's like itching, like there's a lot of energy today. It feels like it's almost like it's like provocative is the best word I can describe with it. So masculine energy, a lot of this, especially in separation right now, this is a lot of the masculine energy potentially looking for a way to articulate a lot of the difficult feelings that you are experiencing. Because I see even now, this is a lot of the masculine energy feeling a lot of either internal conflict or navigating external conflict, and your own ability to become non-reactive in that modality, like that in itself is the expression of your own ability to like move through a space or place of self-control, right? Even now, I see that like a lot of the masculine energy of building new connections with the feminine being like, yeah, I used to be a lot more reactive. Like, and this is a masculine potentially even taking like accountability for that, being like, yeah, I still wrestle with it, right? This is the masculine. It recognizes that even when you're on the healing journey, it's not like that goes away. It's just how you navigate it. It's what you do with it. It's having that pause point, if you will, between what you're immediately feeling versus like how you respond. For a lot of the masculine energy today, that's just like stretching out that distance. That's just stretching out the distance and almost allowing that like stretching out to a certain extent. Like not blocking your own intentions because of something that feels more immediate, right? While for feminine energy right now in separation, seeing a masculine energy that is able to do that. There could even be a moment right now with feminine seeing something about navigating a situation or circumstance that feels like it would have previously created a reactivity space in masculine energy. But seeing a masculine energy that doesn't come into that reactivity space, but is almost able to articulate upon it instead of react to it. That is further that moment of feminine being like, you don't have to be perfect, but the fact that you can do that at all is like, you know, like you're already showing the fact that you're working on that part of yourself, right? While for masculine and feminine energy that is coming into divine union right now, this is that expansion point of the masculine feeling that protectiveness for the feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. And is this masculine having the reactivity point that they typically would? No, because this is masculine energy recognizing that the divine union frequency is changing them. Because there's almost a masculine energy being like, if it wasn't for the divine union frequency, if it wasn't for the divine union frequency, I might have a reactivity point to something that is different. But again, what is the masculine doing right now? They're holding something for the feminine the way that the feminine aspires and desires it to be held. The masculine doesn't feel like that is something that is disempowering them. In a way, it feels like a masculine that has found control over their own self because it's taking that reactivity place and moving it into a productivity space, right? Same with feminine. Feminine feeling potentially defensive around masculine, that same feeling, that sense of like trying to work to energetically protect the counterpart right now. But this is the feminine almost reminding themselves and saying, it's not my energetic responsibility to, right? This is the feminine saying, masculine knows what they're energetically doing. This is a masculine that can navigate their own spaces and places. So both of these energies effectively working through that in such a way that they're channeling that energy into productive spaces and places today. While as for masculine and feminine energy in the heart of the divine union, this is like the breakthrough. Like a lot of the energy in the divine union is having the type of breakthroughs, particularly around the past right now, that can sometimes, like I told you, you have to be when you're trying to have a breakthrough, you have to be very careful and conscientious, because the line between a breakthrough and a crisis is entirely just on how you carry it. It's entirely just upon how you carry it. So even now, if these are energies that are working through their own past trauma, that's that moment. It feels like a breakthrough, but it almost feels very conflicting, because that's that moment that you're like, like it creates that sense of that it creates that new energetic feeling because you're perceiving something in a different way. But again, what are these energies doing? They're not letting that feeling overwhelm them. They're channeling it into a breakthrough instead of that feeling of having a crisis. Final card for today's spread between our Sun card in its reversal and our Ace of Wands, talking about heavy energy but channeling it in productive ways. One card to clarify, please. Look at that. Look what happens. I bet you weren't expecting that card. What happens when you're feeling something energetically negative, but you just say, I choose to make this a positive. I choose to make this have value. I'm not going to just let myself experience the feeling and let that energetically guide me. I'm going to take that and I'm going to apply it in a way that helps those around me. So we see here that for a lot of the energy in the collective, that ability of taking something that feels energetically difficult today and doing something with it that feels like it makes something better is going to be a lot of the path work in helping to feel that sense of energetic healing coming through. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That is that work that I told you. What happens when you have a breakthrough on something that happened like way in the past? You can't go back to fix it, especially if it's like way back there. But that moment of understanding, it feels like a breakthrough, because that's that moment of saying, I know I can see something in such a different way now that I can navigate through it. I can carry it in a different way, right? And so we see even now that ability to do so, it feels like that's how it becomes a breakthrough point, because that's that moment that says, even if that's that moment of saying, I see something in me that was hard to carry, I'm going to make it my business not to let that, not to let that impact those around me. That's that moment that almost creates that pathwork of purpose, simply because it creates that sense of energetically recognizing, taking that negative and being able to put it forward in such a way that it feels like you're already healing it. And how is that energy healing it? By assisting and working through the energy around them, right? Masculine and feminine in the heart of the divine union doing that right now. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. This is the feeling of taking on the energetic burden of another, feeling that sense of energetic pain and the fact that you can't take, like I said, you can't take away a past hurt. You can't take away a past wound. Well, what can you do? You can build a garden around it. You can do everything you can to try to show someone in every way, shape, or form that whatever that was that energetically hurt them isn't going to do so anymore, because that's that path work that a lot of the energy right now, instead of becoming reactionary to someone's past, is almost that moment that feels like the amplification of energetic protection by showing someone and saying, I can affirm that that is not happening. I can affirm that that is not going to happen. I'm going to work on this and show you that that wound that you're carrying is not something that is going to be repeated here. It's something that is going to be healed. While for masculine and feminine energy that is in separation right now, a lot of the energy in separation is having a lot of these energetic breakthroughs to a certain extent. And the energy right now in separation, this is hard. I told you, a lot of this energy that's meeting each other in separation right now, they're not they're not trying to mask the fact that they're on a healing journey. I told you what happens when we come from a place of authenticity and clarity. We kind of move the ego aside, right? And sometimes that can be really energetically difficult. But what is this energy doing right now? This is the energy that's articulating to the new energetic connections that they're making. And they're building bridges by expressing that hurt. They're building bridges by expressing their intentions in the present. They're building bridges by articulating like what they've learned. And that's leading to new positive energetic connections for both masculine and feminine. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now. If this card looks familiar, it's because we got it as bottom of the deck. I think of the last reading we had, or specifically a few days ago. Maybe it was May 4th. We've got here our 3 of Pentacles in its upright right now. So this card, last time we pulled this card, bottom of the deck, it was reversed, right? We talked a lot about the fact that like when we're looking at something that is like being created, the perception as to whether that looks like a construction site or a demolition zone is entirely one that like depends on your own perception on something, right? And so we see even now that for a lot of that energy working through this path work, this is the energy that is trying very hard to take something that was difficult, to take something that was hard, and to operate from building strong foundations across all of the frequencies. That's hard work, and that's why it's so slow going and so frustrating, because this is not the type of energy that wants to rush through what they feel is foundational, right? Especially because a lot of the lessons that led a lot, especially in separation, a lot of the energy took the lesson away that led to separation in feeling like something that they moved away from. The problem or hurdle was that it was not built on a strong foundation. So we see here that this is energy that's moving very purposefully for the sake of building a strong foundation. And that is hard because it can be very slow, very heavy Taurus season energy right now. While for energy that's coming into divine union, this is more of that reminder that I stated the other day about not allowing oneself to feel very righteous about what you're building versus what's outside of it. Remembering and understanding that even if you're creating something that is stronger here, not building that, like recognizing and identifying that anything from the past, like don't let that cast a darker light on something. Almost recognize that that's the amplification of how much you've energetically grown. But it sometimes can feel very isolating. So make sure that you're not getting into that like binary of feeling like there's some things that are inside the divine union experience versus outside. And you have to be very protective, because we see even now like that's that moment that may almost feel like I told you, that overprotectiveness can sometimes skew one's own energetic perception. While for masculine and feminine energy right now in the heart of the divine union frequency, having breakthroughs like this, sometimes it feels a little bit worse, because it's like it doesn't fix something, it doesn't heal something, it just means you have to carry it in a different way. So even now it's like the energy's trying to struggle with like what to do with something now that they've recognized and understood something in a different way, right? And so that's something that still feels like a little bit of like a hanging question for a lot of energy that's just going through some of these like deep pathwork breakthroughs. that is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here to experience it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber name at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I'll never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website, so I encourage you to do it there. Also, a few quick updates for today. First and foremost, I'm very happy to announce that we are continuing our tarot classes this week. Last month, we focused on the Fool card. This month, our live class will be focusing on the Magician. If you would like to join that live class, it will be this Wednesday at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. All you need to do to become a participant in that live class is become a paid subscriber to my Substack, graystrega.substack.com. Your subscription will grant you access to our live class, and if you cannot attend the live class, never fear, it will also provide you a recording of that particular class, as well as recordings of all the previous classes and the course materials. You'll also have access as a paid subscriber to a one-on-one chat with me, where you can ask any questions in relation to anything that we're learning. And also, if you opt to become a founding member to my Substack, not only do you get a discount on the full year's worth of classes, but you will also receive a free 1 hour mentorship reading with me, wherein we will assess where you are on your own tarot journey, and I'll give you best insights to how to utilize those classes to the best of your advantage going forward. One thing I appreciate about these classes is I tried to create them so that they would be useful and valuable to both the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's going to be a bit for everybody there. I hope you guys, thank you to everybody who's already joined us in those classes. I really look forward to seeing you this Wednesday. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my Substack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay abreast of any new updates, offerings, courses that we are maybe offering moving forward. Speaking of which, we also have some new courses that we are offerings that we are offering. First and foremost, I'm happy to announce that we're now doing mentorship classes. If you want to have some support in terms of assessing and understanding where you are in your spiritual journey, you can find that over on the link in my bio. Those classes can be purchased individually, or if you'd like to have more steady, continuous support, we offer month-by-month packages. Same thing right now with Tarot Weekly Guidance. Recognizing and identifying those who may want a little bit more consistent support on your own tarot journey. I'm now offering a discount on those who would prefer to have a circumstance or situation wherein you're getting individual tarot journey work on a weekly basis. Both of those can also be found in the link tree in my bio. Finally, I've got some announcements. One of the things I wanted to thank you guys about is we are going to be announcing the winner of our last free tarot reading this week. I'll be putting it up here on TikTok. I'm also letting you guys know that we're now offering a new contest. All you need, and this is a very interesting contest because it is a referral contest. So last month we offered a free 15-minute reading to anyone who filled out a travel survey that is over on the link in my bio. This month, if you already filled it out, that is great. But for everyone who fills out that survey, I'm actually going to be offering 2 free tarot classes to the winner. I'm going to be offering a class, a tarot reading to the person who wins, and also to whoever referred the person to take that survey. So if you've already taken the survey, I say thank you. But if you would like to be enrolled into winning a free tarot reading, all you need to do is send that survey to others, and hopefully you will also win as well. Again, I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and experiencing these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.